Okay, so I think it's recording now. So you might think that I'm in a forest right now, but I am actually in my dad's garden. He used to be a gardener. He retired recently. He turned 70 recently too. I'm going to take this moment to talk about conceptual variables and operationalizing variables. So when conceptualizing variables, or a conceptual variable is simply an idea of a variable, right? What is it that you want to measure? What's that idea you're looking to study in that research experiment? So for example, you might be interested in thinking about, well, what is love? What's that mean? What's love, right? Is it how spontaneous that other person is? Is it how many text messages they send you? Is it how much they hug you? Is it some other type of measure, right? So conceptual is just what's a focus on and a general definition of love that you're looking at? Emotional love. Love among family members, love among friends, right? But then after you've decided what conceptual variable you're focusing on, what conceptual idea of love you're using, then you, as a researcher, you have to operationalize it. This means you have to say how you're going to measure it in your research study. So if you're going to use romantic love, okay, but then how are you going to measure romantic love? You might say, okay, we're going to have participants fill out a survey that's going to have 5 questions asking them about how romantic do they feel around their partner. You might decide, okay, let me measure it looking at, I'm looking at it in terms of closeness and how often they're around each other and how much communication goes on. So I'm going to ask them to report about how often do they communicate, how many messages do they send each other, and pretty much your operational definition is just your definition of how you're going to measure it in your research study, right? So that's pretty much what an operational definition is. How are you measuring this in your research study? So for example, for ethnicity, you might simply say, we're going to have a self-report question where participants are going to report their ethnicity. For sex, you might say we're going to have 3 options. Participants are going to have male, female, or other, where it's open-ended, and they're going to be asked to respond to that question. Let's say for some reason you were looking at height as one of your variables. You could self-report, like in those examples, we're going to ask participants to report their height and just write it in. Or you could say we're going to have a researcher actually go out and measure each participant, right? So your conceptual variable is just the idea of what you're measuring. And even if it's love, you still have to kind of narrow it down so we know what kind of love you're looking at, what kind of friendship you're looking at, what kind of anger or stress you're looking at, whatever it is, right? You've narrowed it down in terms of your definition, but then when you operationalize it, you're going even further and telling us exactly how you're measuring it in your study. Are you doing a survey? Are you going out there and actually measuring it? Are you using a timer? Thanks, Car, for that extra sound effect.